spoke before the finale of And Just Like That.
Yeah.
I asked whether you wanted to do a second season. You said you were interested in doing it, but you needed to figure it out. And you needed to make sure that HBO Max wanted to do it. It's the biggest original HBO Max series ever. So, of course, they wanted to. Talk about, if you can, just the conversations that led to the show being renewed.
The conversations about season 2 were, we would like to do it again. And I said, well, let me think about it, because what comes first is the story for me. If I know what they're doing, then I can get excited about it. And I felt really good about the energy and the storylines that we did in the first season. And when you have a show that is sort of exploded around the death of a beloved character, that's such a big event that it almost writes itself in a weird, dramatic way. You know what you're pulling and pushing against through the whole thing. So I wanted to think about, what would the second season be? And the great opportunity of the second season is to further develop all the characters that came into play in the first season. And I love that we get a second chance to go deeper into the 4 new characters, as well as even deeper into the original 3. Because the first season was really about prove it. It was a hunch to the world. It's like, let's see if we can see them again. Let's see if you can bring in new characters. Let's see if this works for us, the world. And so it's interesting that you now can get past the exposition part into the character part.
And when you were putting together the first season, what kinds of conversations did you have with Sarah Jessica Parker, with Cynthia Nixon, with Kristen Davis? What did they want to see from their characters?
Well, it started with Sarah Jessica and I talking, because in the beginning of the pandemic, everybody started to reflect a lot on nostalgia and things that they had loved. And there was just this moment where we were discussing maybe doing a podcast where we talked about the show, because both of us have an enormous amount of backstage stuff that we've never discussed. And as we talked, the more we talked, we started realizing, well, then people are going to hold like the past and the show and the criticism of the past. And all of a sudden I was just like, well, why don't we do it now? And don't make a past, but make a present. And Sarah Jessica was like, yes, immediately, yes, let's see where they are now. So, you know, Sarah Jessica was, as long as we're reflecting present day New York, that's going to be the way we should go.
Yeah.
And so she was fully on board immediately. And with Kristen, it was always about how to continually deepen Charlotte. And it's like, what's new? The beginning talks were all like, what's new? What haven't we done? What haven't we said? And Charlotte with adult children, and we all knew that if we were blowing up Miranda's marriage and we were taking Carrie's away, we knew that we wanted Charlotte, and Kristen was very clear that Charlotte and Harry remain a happy couple.
Right.
It was important.
Yeah.
And Charlotte subliminally became the mother of everybody and holding them together. I felt like there was a knowingness to all of them, that looking through the camera at them, I was like, wow, nobody's sort of begging for this. They're just kind of here in this big way, because they have things they like playing, and they're grown up and beautiful. So what I loved was seeing the actors that I had known come to life, and then seeing the new characters be born.
Where are you in the timeline? Have you started writing?
Oh yeah, we started the writing room. We're in the beginning of our second week. It's a Zoom room. You're in the exploration of what was, what can be. It's the fun part. It's the dreaming up part. It's the beginning of, what if this happened? What if Charlotte did this? What if this? What have you thought about since we've last seen each other? And plus there's new writers in the room as well. So that's always exciting. Even within a 2-year growth, there's another couple of writers. So that's exciting. So it's really the dreaming up part, which is just anything goes, thousands and thousands and thousands of notes and ideas. And then eventually you start boiling it down to what is the best sort of journey.
Right. And you think you're going into production in the fall?
In the fall,
okay.
to be on the air in the summer,
okay.
a year from now.
Can you tease anything that you want to see in season 2?
It's all so new right now because one of my big rules is don't tell things until they're real, because then people always ask you, well, what happened to that thing where the giraffe showed up? And you're like, yeah, we couldn't get a giraffe. And then we didn't think that a possum was good enough. So I really don't want to tease out anything. I do know that my goal is to bring all the characters into the mix together so that they're not so much on separate runways. Have the friends all sort of coalesce together.
You say you don't want to talk about it, and yet I'm going to ask you a few specifics.
Yeah.
Carrie and Franklin shared a kiss at the end of season 1.
Yes.
Is Ivan Hernandez going to be in season 2?
He is. Season 2 starts 3 weeks after season 1. So I will tell you that. It's 3 weeks later.
There you go.
So the idea that Ivan Hernandez, who is so sexy and funny and cute and great and surprising for her, would still be a surprise. And the idea that, what does that mean? I closed those doors deliberately on that kiss as a surprise. Who knows what went on behind that door? And so what we want to discover is what did go on behind that door and where are they now? Right. And what does this mean, Carrie now? She actually kissed somebody spontaneously. What does that mean to somebody who has let go of her past? And of course, how much can you let go of your past? Your past is always with you. But you do make a very symbolic goodbye on a bridge, and then you kiss somebody. And so what I'm interested in, and the reason that Franklin's in the show, is the unexpected and the possibility.
3 weeks after the events of the finale, Miranda and Che should still be in Los Angeles together.
Yes, they are. Would you like to go on to the bonus round?
Yes.
Yes, because why in God's name would I ever say Miranda was going to Los Angeles and then not show her in Los Angeles?
There you go.
The one clear note I got from the audience last year, the only one that I totally 100% agree with, is what happened in Cleveland.
Yes.
Yes, like Miranda said, I'm going to Cleveland, and we set up a thing.
Yeah.
And then production happens every now and then, and you go like, well, we can't really do Cleveland, even though we did have an idea. So I do understand the idea of giving people what they're expecting to see, which is Miranda Hobbs with red hair going out with a narcissistic stand-up comic in Los Angeles.
Who's shooting a pilot?
Who's shooting a pilot?
What's worse? What did you make of the reactions to the Che character?
What I found most interesting is that Che arrived as a hero. Che became a hero. People in the first 3 or 4 episodes were like, Che, I love that Che. Che gave Gloria a handkerchief at the funeral. Che is so confrontational and funny to Carrie, telling her, you're cool, but like bring it along. Che's noble is a stand-up. Charlotte liked Che's stand-up act. Right. There was all this sort of, ooh, this is new. This is strong. This is strong. I think people enjoyed the beginning of Che. And I always said to the writers, get ready. Because as soon as the marriage gets involved, it's going to create a different dynamic. So it's very hard to figure out what the actual, first of all, how thrilling it is. My friend Greg Araki, who's a filmmaker, said to me, how does it feel to have created the most polarizing character in all 5,000 shows that are on TV? And I said, what? He goes, well, in the past, you have like Vikings who are drinking children's blood, and in the future, characters have tentacles and they're half human, half cyborg, and no hearts and no souls. And what everybody's concerned about is a non-binary stand-up comic in the present day. And so as a writer, we all take great pride in doing something that's so new that people don't know what to do with it. And I think that's the reason Che's in the show. Che represents the current moment of gender and sexuality and owning yourself, whatever that be. And it also creates anarchy, which is what people forgot that our show used to be about. Miranda was an anarchy character. She was like, why do I have to wear a dress and go out and pretend guys are smarter than they are? All of a sudden, everybody rethought them. Miranda was Susie Homemaker suddenly, and really she never was, but she did get married against her will almost.
Yeah, that's
People
right.
forget that she like got married in a park, low key, because she had a baby, and she thought, why not? I'll try it. So I think the reaction was thrilling and a little confusing, and I understand that people were shook. And when somebody's shook, they react. And I also think, if I may get a little graphic, the minute the fingering in the kitchen happened,
Yeah, okay.
people didn't know what was coming next. And I think they spent, that was episode 5.
Yeah.
I think they spent the next 5 episodes some level of terrorized. So like about what are they going to do next? Because I've never seen that.
Right.
Combo plate with Carrie peeing in the bed, to me, which is like the idea that you can try to balance those two things and never been on television before or in movies. So I think when you do something unknown or for the first time, people look at it like, I don't know what this is and I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah. You're shooting on the streets of New York City.
Yeah.
What kind of workarounds did you have to use to avoid having the paparazzi spoil
The death.
or anything? Like
Well,
what, you know?
Look, the big miracle is that we got the show on the air before anyone knew that Mr. Big died. I mean, that's Herculean. And there's so many things that went into that, creating scenes that weren't right, that were never going to be in the show, putting her in costumes you would never see, because we knew that we were shooting the funeral. And that was my big nerves, because I was like, everybody's going to see black suits, black dresses, because that's what you want.
Sure.
Going into something. And I knew I was safe inside, except for the extras, which wound up being incredibly safe for us, which is amazing that they did that, meaning that when we were shooting the scene, I had fake dialogue written for Cynthia and James Naughton to say as Big's brother, because I didn't want to give it away, because I was worried. And then Cynthia and Sarah Jessica and Kristen said, we have to react to the real stuff.
Yeah.
I said, okay, so there was 150 extras. I sent 75 away, and I kept the 75 that were on this side of the room, and I took Sarah Jessica by the hand.
Passed a lie detector test.
I took Sarah Jessica by the hand, and we stood up and said, okay, I kept 75 of you because we want you to keep our secret. And this is Mr. Big's funeral, and we've done everything we can to keep it a secret. And it's very important to the show, and we would love it. And I made jokes about, we know where you live, NDAs, we're not kidding, but we would love you to keep the secret. And then on December the 13th, the day after it airs, you can tell everybody you were there and you knew.
Yeah.
And they did.
Wow.
And I think that's respect out of love for Carrie. I really think it's about, why would we ruin Carrie's show? I feel like it's their show too.
Yeah.
Anybody who was in that room knew that it was something. It wasn't like a news show where you have to convince everybody to love it. They already liked it. They were there. They were dressed up. So, but outside, I had Chris come down and put him in a black suit. He said, you want me to put makeup on my face and come downtown and pretend I'm acting? I said, yeah, I wrote the scenes.
He was at his own funeral?
He was at his own funeral out front. It was the only way to distract.
Right.
And then Molly Rogers, our brilliant costume designer, put Sarah Jessica in a black and white polka dot dress, and she put a pink bird on her head. And she said to me, this will make sure everybody thinks it's in the show, because they'll go, it's like a pink bird. It's like the blue bird from when she got married, and now they're having a fight. And I wrote this scene about them not being able to spend time with each other. And this funeral is important to me. And so it worked, because no one knew. But other than that, there was plenty that got away. I mean, clothes got away.
Yeah.
But I kept saying, people that think the show's about clothes It really isn't. It's about what they're saying and doing in the clothes, so they can see the clothes. And to me, it was completely worth the trade-off. The excitement we got. I mean, if you're going to come back after so many years, and there's, 50, 30-some-year-old girls waiting on the street in Soho, 30-some-year-old girls to see Carrie Bradshaw come out of a building. That's a good sign that there's something that people are a little bit excited about.
An entire generation of people divided themselves between who's a Carrie, who's a Miranda, who's a Samantha. What are you?
I'm a Carrie because I write it and figure it all out in my head. I'm a Carrie and I'm all of them. But, I don't believe anyone has to be one thing. Margaret Cho says you get two. You get a zodiac, you get a primary zodiac, Sex and the City, and then you get one rising.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm Carrie and a Miranda.
Got it. In the finale, Carrie's in Paris, Samantha's in London. They text, they agree to meet. What do you think happened during that conversation?
Well, it's very funny because every single one of the writers has a different version of what happened during that conversation. So I think there was some champagne. I think there was a grown-up back and forth and a love affair. That they realize that something's more important than being afraid to heal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure they had a great night. To me, they had a great night and things became resolved. Once Carrie let go of an old love, one of her current loves came back in.
Will Carrie and Samantha be texting again in the second season?
Yes.
Yay. Do you have a favorite episode of Sex and the City?
I have favorite moments. I love very much when Big goes to Napa and they twist in his empty apartment. I think that's pretty magical to Moon River. I also love My Motherboard Myself. Oh my God. I mean, that to me, heartbreaking, but the nobility, and by the way, the nobility of Miranda reducing an entire funeral down to, which is such a Sex and the City moment. I don't have anyone to walk down the aisle with at my mother's funeral. Everybody else is married. And that Carrie jumps out of the aisle and takes her hand.
I'm gonna get.
It's so about what I think the show is, which is the bravery and the nobility of friendship and how they together have to fight society so that in this show, they're still fighting society. And so the idea of them stepping out for each other in harm's way, whether they're doing something that people approve of or don't approve of, that Charlotte steps up and says to Miranda, just help me understand you and Shay.
Yeah, right.
The fact that they're still jumping out, but the idea of death, being there for each other in death.
Yeah.
The whole premise of the first season was how your friends are there for you when the worst thing that can happen in life, which is death, happens.
Tell me why each man was wrong for Carrie. Aiden.
Aiden was wrong for Carrie because Mr. Big was in her primary focus. Aiden was wrong for Carrie because she likes a complicated puzzle.
He was not a complicated puzzle.
The great thing about Aiden was John Corvitt and the absolute magic of the two of them together. That wouldn't have worked if they weren't the perfect couple. They were the perfect couple, Carrie and Aiden, that was imperfect because of how she feels.
Berger.
Berger was not brave enough. Berger is a writer. Berger didn't work for her because the women in the writing room were like, no, Berger. Even though of all the men that we created, based on all the women in the writing room, their men, Berger was the really most realistic. They believed that Berger was the one that's out there the most.
Alexander Petrovsky.
Well, he was cold. He was a very prominent, substantial being, which would be the only thing that would actually replace Big. was something that was quote unquote bigger than big. And the reason I brought Alexander Petrovsky in was to make big look like the high school quarterback. You know what I mean? If you get something very exotic and very far away, and then all of a sudden big looks like, oh, they're high school sweethearts, because it's more they're like they went to high school together versus this exotic character. I mean, luckily with Misha, it was magnificent. So he was about himself. And Carrie was being eaten alive by that. So that's why he wasn't right for her, because she's a star.
Might we ever see Aiden or Berger on And Just Like That?
I never say no to anything. The interesting thing about life is that you think about people and sometimes they come back, but we have no concrete plans at all.
Because John Corbett sort of said that he was going to be on.
John is.
Was he being a troll? What was he doing?
John is the most wonderfully antic, funny. No, he just said that because he thought it would be funny.
Yeah.
Also, he was doing press and it got a lot of press. But John just said that to be funny.
What was your favorite moment from season 1 of And Just Like That?
I think the one that takes my breath away is watching Sarah Jessica ask Carrie watch the memorial film. Watching her quietly feel everything she was feeling, to me, was so deeply realized and so secret. And her at the top of her game, that's one of the ones that sort of sticks out for me.
I thought you were going to say when she says that the podcast is called Sex and the City.
Well, that was a great stunt. That was a great
I
stunt.
gasped.
Yeah,
I
it's
might
great.
have screamed.
Of course, you know, there's so many. That's the great news. I think
Yeah.
that might be why we're coming back.
Sex and the City ran for 6 seasons. Do you have an ending in mind?
No,
or?
I always write, even when we did Sex and the City, I ended every season, like, if this is the end.
Yeah.
You know, and the television business is very unpredictable now. So who knows? I mean, as long as there's still good stories, who knows?
What's something you still want to do as a creator?
Oh, there's so many ideas. And that's the good news, that there's ideas still, and I have the opportunity to do some of them. The dance of your personal taste versus zeitgeist versus product versus where the world is now versus who you're working with is such a carnival that you don't really know what's going to go and what's going to fly. I think that there's so much television and film on TV that it's gotten to the point where it almost is off-Broadway. It's almost like creative rather than commercial.
Right. Interesting.
It's almost more now, well, you know, there's no back end, there's no syndication, there's no big alarm or bell that goes off when you hit something. Occasionally it does, but it's rarer and rarer and rarer. So the avenues to do something creative for yourself, because the only thing that's getting on the boards at this point is something original and new, because there's already so many options out there that have been done. So it's like the rewards should be creativity. And that's enough? Question mark? Don't know.